The marriage counselor's business card was still warm in my pocket when Marissa slid a folded piece of paper across our dinner table at Romano's. "I made you a list," she said, her voice carrying that patronizing tone I'd grown to despise over our 12 years together. I unfolded it slowly, reading each item while she sipped her wine with theatrical satisfaction. 1. Lose 15 pounds. 2. Get a better-paying job than teaching. 3. Stop being so sarcastic all the time. 4. Dress more professionally. 5. Be more social with my friends. 6. Fix your attitude about my mother. 7. Take me on real vacations, not camping trips. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The restaurant buzzed around us, clinking glasses, muffled conversations, the soft jazz that was supposed to make everything romantic. Instead, it felt like a funeral march for whatever was left of our relationship. "Well?" Marissa asked, leaning back in her chair like a CEO waiting for quarterly projections. "What do you think?" I pulled out my phone, opened the Notes app, and typed for exactly 30 seconds. Then I slid it across the table to her. My list had exactly one item: find a new husband. Her face went through several colors: pale white, flushed pink, then an angry red that matched her lipstick. The couple at the next table stopped mid-conversation to stare. "You can't be serious," she whispered. "Absolutely serious. I'll even help you pack." I stood up, dropped a 20 on the table, and walked out while she sat there speechless for probably the first time in years. That was 3 weeks ago. Now I was sitting in my Honda Civic outside Dave's pub, staring at my phone and the text message that had just arrived from someone named Owen. "Can't wait to taste you again tonight. Your husband still clueless? LOL. The message was meant for Marissa, obviously. Wrong number, right betrayal. I'd suspected something for months. The late nights at team meetings, the new lingerie that never made appearances at home, the way she'd started showering immediately after coming home from work, the cologne smell in her car that definitely wasn't mine. But seeing it in black and white, that was different. That made it real. I pushed through the heavy wooden door of Dave's pub. The place smelled like beer, fried food, and broken dreams. Perfect atmosphere for my current situation. "Tommy!" Dave called from behind the bar. He was polishing glasses with the kind of methodical precision that comes from 30 years of bartending. "You look like someone just told you Santa Claus was a tax auditor." "Worse," I said, sliding onto my usual stool. "I just found out my wife's been conducting performance reviews with her co-worker Owen." Dave's eyebrows shot up. "Owen Wright? That slick-haired pretty boy from her company? You know him? He comes in here sometimes with his wife Emily. Tips like he's doing me a favor and talks loud enough for everyone to hear about his executive decisions. Real piece of work." Dave poured me a beer without asking. "You sure about this?" I showed him the text. Dave read it twice, his expression darkening. "Well, shit," he said. "What are you going to do?" "I have absolutely no idea." That was a lie. I had several ideas, most of them involving creative uses for my baseball bat and Owen's BMW. But I was a high school English teacher, not a criminal. I believed in justice, not just revenge. "You know what you need?" Dave said, nodding toward the end of the bar where a young woman was typing furiously on a laptop. "You need Lisa's help." Lisa Chen worked part-time at Dave's while finishing her computer science degree. She had purple-streaked hair, more piercings than a tackle box, and could hack into anything with a Wi-Fi connection. "Lisa," Dave called, "Tommy here needs some technical assistance." She looked up from her laptop, studied my face, and immediately understood. "Cheating spouse? Is it that obvious? You've got that 'my world just exploded but I'm trying to hold it together' look. I see it a lot." She closed her laptop and moved closer. "What do you need?" "Information, evidence, something that'll hold up if this goes to divorce court." Lisa nodded thoughtfully. I can help, but we do this legally. No hacking, no breaking and entering, just good old-fashioned detective work with a modern twist. Over the next hour, Lisa outlined a plan. Phone records I could legally request, public social media posts I could screenshot, location data from shared accounts, credit card statements that might show hotel charges. The key, she explained, is building a timeline. Cheaters are creatures of habit. They think they're being clever, but they usually follow patterns. She was right. Over the next week, I discovered that Marissa and Owen had a standing Tuesday meeting at the Marriott downtown. Thursday evening client dinners that lasted until midnight. Weekend team-building retreats that coincidentally happened when I was visiting my parents. The credit card statements were particularly enlightening. Owen had been paying for everything, hotels, dinners, even a weekend trip to Boston that Marissa had told me was a girls' weekend with Jenna. But the real jackpot came when I followed them to the Marriott the following Tuesday. I didn't go inside. Instead, I waited in the parking lot with my phone, recording the timestamps of their arrival and departure. What I didn't expect was to run into Emily Wright coming out of her own car, clearly on the same mission. Emily was nothing like I'd expected. Where Owen was loud and flashy, she was quiet and observant. Where Marissa was all surface charm, Emily had a depth that suggested she'd been thinking about this situation for a long time. "You must be Tom," she said, approaching my car. "I've heard a lot about you." "All bad, I'm guessing." "Actually, no. Owen complains that you're too smart, too observant. Says Marissa worries you'll figure things out." Emily's smile was sharp as a knife. Looks like he was right. We talked for 20 minutes in that parking lot, sharing information like two generals planning a campaign. Emily had been suspicious for months. She'd hired a private investigator named Gil Martinez, who'd confirmed the affair, but also discovered something else. "Owen's been using company funds for their little rendezvous," Emily said, "charging everything to his expense account as client entertainment. That's corporate fraud. What are you going to do about it?" "Depends on what you're planning to do." I thought about it. The old me would have confronted Marissa directly, probably ended up in a screaming match that solved nothing. But the old me hadn't been publicly humiliated with a list of demands in a crowded restaurant. "I'm going to give her a taste of her own medicine," I said finally. "But I'm going to do it right." Emily's smile widened. "I was hoping you'd say that." The plan we developed over the next week was beautiful in its simplicity. No laws broken, no violence, just good old-fashioned public accountability. Phase 1 involved Marissa's workplace. I'd learned from Lisa that their company had strict policies about workplace relationships and expense account abuse. An anonymous tip to HR about inappropriate conduct, backed up by publicly available evidence, would trigger an investigation. Phase 2 was more personal. Owen was incredibly proud of his vintage BMW, a 1989 convertible he'd restored himself and parked in prominent locations around town. Saturday mornings, he always parked it at the farmer's market while he bought his organic coffee and artisanal pastries. Phase 3 was the confrontation I'd been planning since that night at Romano's. I started with a letter to Marissa's boss, Ms. Tran. Nothing illegal, just copies of publicly posted social media photos that showed Marissa and Owen at company events, looking far more intimate than colleagues should. I included a polite note expressing concern about potential policy violations. Then I called in a favor with my friend Rick, who owned a towing company. Saturday morning, while Owen was inside the market buying his pretentious coffee, Rick's truck arrived to collect the BMW for unpaid parking violations. The violations were real. Owen had a habit of parking in handicapped spots, but the timing was perfect. By the time Owen emerged from the market, his precious car was being loaded onto the truck. But that wasn't the best part. The best part was the crowd of people recording everything on their phones as Owen screamed at the tow truck driver about his classic automobile. Rick, playing his role perfectly, shrugged and said, Maybe next time don't park in handicapped spots, buddy. The video went viral on local social media within hours. Owen Wright, successful executive, having a public meltdown over his towed BMW. The comments were brutal and hilarious, but I saved the best for last. That evening, I came home to find Marissa pacing in our living room, her phone pressed to her ear. She was talking to Owen, her voice shrill with panic. "I don't care about your stupid car," she was saying. "Ms. Tran wants to see me first thing Monday morning. Someone sent her photos of us at the Christmas party and the company retreat. She's talking about policy violations and expense account reviews." She noticed me standing in the doorway and quickly ended the call. "We need to talk," she said, but her voice lacked its usual commanding tone. "Do we?" I sat down in my favorite chair, the one she'd always complained about. "I thought you'd covered everything with your list. Tom, I know what you're thinking, but actually, I don't think you do know what I'm thinking. See, I've been doing some thinking of my own lately, about lists, about expectations, about what people really deserve." I pulled out my phone and opened the folder Lisa had helped me create. Screenshots, photos, credit card statements, location data, a complete timeline of Marissa's betrayal. "This is interesting," I said, scrolling through the evidence. "According to your location data, you were at the Marriott downtown every Tuesday for the past 3 months. But according to your calendar, you were in client meetings." Marissa's face went white. "How did you get this information? Legally. See, when you share a phone plan and credit cards, there's a lot of information that's perfectly accessible to spouses. Funny how that works." I stood up and walked to our kitchen table, where I'd laid out printed copies of everything. Bank statements showing Owen's charges, photos from social media, even a copy of the text Owen had accidentally sent me. "Here's my new list for you, Marissa," I said, picking up a piece of paper I'd prepared. 1. Pack your things. 2. Find somewhere else to live. 3. Explain to your mother why her perfect daughter is getting divorced. 4. Figure out how to afford your own health insurance. 5. Deal with whatever Ms. Tran decides to do about your workplace relationship. 6. Live with the fact that everyone in town has seen your boyfriend crying over his towed car. 7. Accept that you threw away 12 years of marriage for someone who's about to lose his job and his wife. Marissa stared at the evidence spread across our table, her composure finally cracking completely. "You can't do this," she whispered. "Actually, I can, and I am. The divorce papers will be filed Monday morning. Emily Wright is filing for separation the same day. Owen's expense account fraud is now under corporate investigation. And the best part? I didn't break a single law." She tried to argue, to negotiate, to turn on the charm that had worked for so many years. But I was done being managed, done being manipulated, done being treated like an item on someone else's to-do list. The final confrontation came Sunday night. Owen, desperate and drunk, broke into our house through the back door. I'd been expecting something like this. Emily had warned me he was spiraling. I was ready. The motion sensors I'd installed triggered the garage lights and security cameras as Owen stumbled through the door, connecting the garage to the house. I was waiting for him with my phone already recording. "Looking for something, Owen?" He spun around, nearly falling over. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his perfect hair disheveled. "You ruined everything," he slurred. "My marriage, my job, my car. Actually, you ruined everything. I just made sure people found out about it." Owen lunged at me, but 12 years of marriage to Marissa had taught me patience and timing. I stepped aside, and he crashed into the wall where I'd hung my collection of student achievement certificates. "Here's a pop quiz for you, Owen," I said, still recording. Question 1. What's the penalty for breaking and entering? Question 2. How does it feel to lose everything because you couldn't keep it in your pants? Question 3. Do you think Marissa will still want you when you're unemployed and divorced? Owen struggled to his feet. "Please," he said. "I'll do anything. I'll leave town. I'll quit my job. You'll do all of those things anyway, I said. The difference is now everyone will know why. The police arrived 10 minutes later, called by neighbors who'd heard the commotion. They found Owen in my garage, clearly intoxicated, clearly having broken in, begging me not to press charges while I calmly explained the situation. The video of Owen's breakdown, his pathetic pleading, his complete humiliation, was the perfect ending to my revenge. I didn't post it online. I didn't need to. The story spread through town anyway, growing more dramatic with each telling. Marissa moved out the next day. Ms. Tran fired Owen on Tuesday. Emily's divorce was finalized within 6 months, and she got everything. As for me, I kept the house, kept my job, kept my dignity. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes the best response to someone's demands isn't compliance, it's consequences. I never did lose those 15 pounds Marissa wanted. Turns out, I was perfect just the way I was.